Hello.
Here we are again. It's Sunday afternoon with Preacher Leela and the wisdom of the ancient sages, Swami Rama, talking about Mundaka Upanishad. Okay?
Okay.
All righty. So you ready to take it away, Preacher?
I'm ready, Swamiji.
Okay. Can you see the thing there?
Chapter 3, Canto 2.
Chapter 3, Canto 2.
And verse 1. Just the glasses here. Knowers of the Supreme Brahman know that the whole universe is supported by Brahman and shines through the light of Brahman. Those who remove all worldly desires and worship Purusha, pure consciousness, transcend the cycle of birth and death. Pure consciousness. The previous verse said that if the aspirant worships while having worldly motives, then he or she attains success in the world, but not on the path of spirituality. This is called Sakama Puja, worship with the desire. However, this verse says that worship without worldly motives and purely for spiritual enlightenment is a means to liberation. A person of self-realization alone knows the Supreme Brahman, one without a second. The wise, who completely devote their time and life to self-realization, attain emancipation and are free.
Free.
From the
Where's Roseanne?
birth.
Hello, Nilesh. Where is Roseanne? We need a free from Roseanne. I'll be the stand-in. I'll be the stand-in.
Well, my free doesn't count.
Oh, there's a Rojo. There's a Rojo free. There's Roseanne.
Yay!
We were waiting for a Roseanne free. There we go. There's a Roseanne free.
Now the congregation is complete.
Now we're ready to go, huh?
There cannot be any delusion or sorrow for that wise one who has realized the unity in diversity, his own self in the self of all. He hates none and loves all. True love.
There you go, true love.
The aspirant is delightfully confronted with the consequences of the idea that his infinite self is his true nature, the true nature of every man and woman. I love that. I really love that line, to be delightfully confronted with the consequences of the idea that his infinite self is his true nature.
Yeah.
I can say that I've occasionally had that direct experience, and it's definitely described by Brahma Vihara, frolicking in Brahman.
Yeah.
I giggle and laugh when I contemplate in that direction.
Frolic, frolic, frolic.
Because it really does feel like a delightful confrontation, because there's something disconcerting about it, but I know what it means and what it is, what it's supposed to be, and so it's delightful. That's the infinite self, and I'm not excluded. I'm not excluded.
Me too. Me too.
And that's fun.
Indeed.
One who has realized Atman and perceives that same Atman in all beings. How can he or she be separate from others? Then who can hate whom? The self is one with all, and the only life expression of this vision is universal love. Love is a binding force that is life, while separateness comes from hatred. Love is one of the highest points of human excellence. Howdy, Gene.
There's a howdy. And there's a me too from Roseanne about what you were saying.
Frolicking. Delightful confrontation. Human society collectively longs to attain this state of civilization. I wish. Alas,
Underneath it all, we're all wishing for that, but we may not know it.
yeah. And in that we share with each person.
Yeah.
Alas, such great people are rare, although they exist in all traditions and cultures. But if all the societies of the world produced such people who could emanate love selflessly to all, then human beings would never have a longing to go to heaven. For all the heavenly joys, even the immortal joy of Brahman, would be attained here and now in this lifetime.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Where are those prophets of love? It is not the intellect, but the heart that will transform human society. Grief and delusion come to a human being when he identifies himself with his limited body, mind, and its objects. Hi, Ma! When one identifies oneself with the non-self aspect of his personality, he is weak and helpless and commits many mistakes and experiences tension, grief, and sorrow. The illusion of separateness has a critical, constricting effect on the growth of the human mind, intellect, and society. Jesus says, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." The Upanishads say the whole universe is your family and all the members of the universe are your family members. The purpose of spirituality is to destroy the illusion of separateness. A river cut off from its main stream must become stagnant. So too is the case when man cuts himself off from the mainstream, Atman. Then he follows into sorrow, grief, and delusion.
Falls. But
you know, Miss Tequila falls down all the time. She gets right back up.
Uh-huh.
Lesson from that.
Yeah.
I take a lesson from that. We can fall, but we can get right back up and head right back in the same direction to the...
Yeah, your picture has frozen, Leela, but your voice is fine. So we can continue like this if you want, or we can pause and you can refresh your video. But just so you know, at any point that you want to refresh your video, you can do it.
Well, let's refresh it now since we've had a little pause.
Okie dokie.
Here we go.
Leela is refreshing, everybody. And here she comes. There she is. Now
now my picture's back. By contrast, verse 2, those who do not renounce all desires are pulled by their worldly desires and are born again and again amidst those very surroundings they desire. But for one whose desires are fulfilled and who is established in the self, all desires vanish in this lifetime. This lifetime, y'all.
Right now.
This verse repeats the same idea expressed in the previous verse. For those who long to enjoy the objects of desire and constantly brood about them, their own desire becomes the cause for their rebirth. It is actually unfulfilled desires that prompt the individual soul to be reborn on earth. Among all desires, the desire of attachment is the one most responsible for rebirth. Suppose that someone is dying but has an intense desire in the mind, and that desire has not been fulfilled in this lifetime. Such a desire becomes the reason for the individual soul to come again to this earth so that unfulfilled desire is fulfilled. When the sage sincerely treads the path of spirituality and has no attachments or worldly desires, but only a single desire to attain Brahman, even if he does not attain Brahman in this lifetime, that one desire for self-realization or the attainment of Brahman will motivate him to again follow the path that he has trodden before. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
The wise, therefore, with all their resources and spiritual disciplines, destroy the fetters of ignorance and attain perfection in this lifetime. And my picture is frozen on a really silly face. Should we keep it?
It's up to you.
Let's refresh again.
All righty. Well, she's going to refresh again.
Here we go.
Everybody. I don't think it looks silly though. It's just a smiley face.
Here we go. I'm going to refresh.
She's refreshing. She's like going to the ladies' room and primping. Is that what you call it? Primping?
Yeah. I had to primp a little bit. I thought that was a silly face.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now we have the whole real face. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
The knowledge of Atman cannot be attained through discourse, intellectual analysis, or even extensive study, but only to those whom it chooses does Atman unfold itself. Unfold, like it's all folded up. And it unfolds. That's kind of a neat analogy.
And there you go.
On the path of self-realization, when all efforts and spiritual disciplines are successfully practiced by the aspirant, a point is attained where there is no desire at all. But this state is attained by the aspirants or wise ones who long intensely with their whole hearts and minds. To them, the luminous Atman reveals itself and its own nature, that which is peace, happiness, and bliss. Spiritual discipline removes the veil created by ignorance. The longing to attain Brahman possesses the power to do it. The self is already there. It is neither imported nor transported from any plane, but it is the innermost being within. It only reveals itself when the aspirant has accomplished his or her spiritual sadhana by purifying the mind, intellect, and heart. You gotta really want it, folks.
There you go.
Here, the doctrine of grace is intended to play a great role in the life of an aspirant. The aspirant should understand that Atman is not attainable through mere learning or discourses, nor through intellectual gymnastics. It is attained only by those who are chosen. It is a law that similar chooses similar. When an aspirant lifts himself and his sadhana from the physical to the mental, and finally from the mental to the spiritual, then he stands face to face in front of Atman, wanting to be one with his immortal self. To such an aspirant, Atman reveals its true nature. Verse 4. This Atman cannot be attained by those who lack inner strength, sincerity, tapas, or dispassion. However, one who is endowed with these attains self-realization and as a result enters the realm of Brahman. This verse forcefully explains to the aspirant that strength is the first capacity to be regained. For inner strength is robbed by the mind and the sense pleasures, and the aspirant should be careful to guard his inner strength exactly the way someone does when they light a little candle flame and try to protect it from the breeze. That same little light can eventually grow into a forest conflagration. Rojo?
Yes.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
She's singing it very softly there,
I don't
Leela.
know it very well.
Oh, I did the yogic version of that once. It goes, this little light that's not really mine, I'm going to let it shine, even though there's not really nine. This little light is not really mine. But anyway, you get the idea.
We got the idea.
Can eventually grow into a forest conflagration and light everything else on fire too. But a good fire, a spiritual fire. In such a case, all the adverse circumstances lose their negative value. And instead of creating obstacles, they start to help the aspirant to unfold the inner dimensions of life. That's a real interesting sentence, isn't it, Swamiji?
Yeah. Which part of it catches your attention most?
In such a case, all the adverse circumstances lose their negative value. It doesn't mean that you don't have adverse circumstances.
Yeah.
So there's still adverse circumstances, but instead of creating obstacles, they start to help the aspirant to unfold the inner dimensions of life. So therefore, if myself or any one of us is on this path and we encounter obstacles,
it's quite a different way of experiencing obstacles, isn't it?
Yes,
I guess that's your point. Yes, very different way of doing
it. And so therefore, that really slams it home to me that sadhana can really be an adventure.
What a journey, huh?
It makes it an adventure. So those obstacles are just different ways of learning.
Yeah, just another holiday, huh?
Another exciting movie.
Yeah, there you go.
But I can look at the light, even during the obstacles. But students who are destitute of strength cannot attain. They need inner strength and determination first. Otherwise, you get lost in the obstacles.
Dragged down by them things.
Dragged around, that's right. Right into the swamp.
Uh-oh.
Serious obstacles are created by pramada, inertia, laziness, and carelessness. These are the prime enemies of a sadhaka, which obscure the vision of the splendid, self-illumined Atman. But the wise ones build their inner strength by practicing self-discipline and determination. They strive with full vigor and a one-pointed mind, and finally they attain union with Brahman. Without yoking the individual self with the cosmic self or Brahman, practicing a spiritual discipline without a definite system cannot lead one to attain the goal of life.
Sounds a little bit like yoga.
Yoga.
Yoking.
The individual self with the cosmic self or Brahman. This ain't no body or mind stuff. This is the big deal.
Pretty big deal.
False austerity or mortifications are not helpful. Verse 5. Upon attaining this, Roseanne says, yoga.
Yoga. There's a yoga.
Upon attaining this, seers become content in their wisdom, established in Atman, free from attachment and desire, and fully at peace. Somebody out there in Facebook viewer land must have chosen peace.
There we go.
For their key word. Maybe
there
somebody
is fully at peace.
Chosen peace.
And oops, what just happened here?
Fully at peace. Upon attaining the all-pervading consciousness, the realized souls enter the realm of Brahman. And just like Swami Ma Tripura Shakti Bharati, they holler, free.
Free! Boy, that's a free, isn't it?
It sure is. That's got to be a holler. The sages become content after the knowledge of self-realization. Hello, Rosalind.
Yep. Hello, Rosalind.
They are firmly established in the supreme bliss, free from attachments and passions.
All righty, there we go again. There's another free.
Such calm and tranquil souls, completely devoted to Atman, ultimately become capital O1, exactly the way a river becomes one with the ocean. Brahman is pure consciousness. Individuality exists through the association with the body, senses, and mind, which constantly feed the ego. The ego separates the individual from the whole by creating a wall. This is all illusory, but the human being thinks that it is permanent and real.
Oops.
When a mirror is thickly enveloped by dust, one cannot see one's face in such a mirror. But when the dust is washed off, one can see one's own face in the mirror. Such superimpositions are false and can be washed off with spiritual practice. The knowledge of the real self washes off all the accumulated dust of the impure mind. Knowledge of Atman alone leads one to self-realization. Such a sage merges into Brahman after casting off his body. Verse 6.
Verse 6.
Those who attain the final, precise wisdom expounded in Vedanta, and who, by following the path of renunciation, have purified their minds, attain freedom from all bondage. Freedom. And after casting off the body, go to the realm of Brahman, the realm of highest immortality. The same idea is reiterated in this verse. The renunciates should know that even after purifying all the stains of avidya from the heart, mind, and buddhi, the vague impressions of ignorance still remain, although the seeker's view of them is obscured. It is exactly like when you do a wonderful job of cleaning your living room, and thinking that your room looks immaculate. Then one day, you lift the carpet and are shocked and amazed to see how much dust remains hidden under the carpet.
Oops.
Dust bunnies.
What?
I was joking. That never happens.
That never happens to Rojo.
That's
The carpet.
Ye with many carpets and many unpacked boxes.
See, I never get to the point where I have.
She never gets to the carpet. She never gets through all the boxes that are sitting on the carpet to be able to get to the carpet.
Yes.
That's what she was saying.
I figured that all of Rojo's kitties would eat up the dust bunnies under the carpet, so there wouldn't be any.
Yeah, but they can't get through the boxes either to get to the carpet, to get under the carpet.
Well, therefore, the wise ones form a strong habit of going into deep meditation and not allowing the dust of ignorance to accumulate or touch their internal state. Maybe it's better off not to have carpets in the first place.
Maybe so.
Such a wise person is an illumined soul and attains freedom from Maya. All the impositions and limitations created by time, space, and causality are destroyed. For he realizes oneness with Brahman. Then the wise one transports himself to the transcendent reality. Not the reality of the relative plane, but the reality that is self-existent. It is the source of all consciousness without beginning or end. Therefore, such an enlightened one does not return to the relative planes of the universe. Of his death, the poets say, the day of parting is actually the day of meeting. When the individual soul is wedded with the Absolute, such a bliss is inexplicable, unimaginable, and immeasurable. His ego is totally annihilated. Here there is a subtle point to be understood. What happens to him? Does he become non-existent? The answer is certainly not. He becomes one with the self-existent bliss absolute. Such a wise person does not leave footprints behind to be traced. Just as a bird flies through the air without leaving any trace, so likewise does the individual soul fly from this shore of life to the other shore of life without leaving a trace. Not leaving a trace of the footprint means not leaving any samskaras unburned in the fire of knowledge. Burn, baby, burn.
Burn, baby, burn.
At the time of liberation, verse 7 continues, all the 15 constituents of the body, that's 5 gross elements, 5 senses, and 5 pranas, return to their sources. The senses subside in their origins. All previous karmas, intellectual knowledge, and individual soul all become one with absolute Brahman. This verse satisfies the curiosity of the sadhaka by describing what happens to the body, senses, and mind after death. The question arises, what happens to the body, breath, senses, and mind when the immortal bird takes off into the space of bliss and meets her beloved Supreme Lord and becomes inseparably one, never to return? The Prashna Upanishad and the Mundaka Upanishad are similar in their teachings, and as we said, they come from the same source, Atharva Veda. By considering this metaphor, you can understand what happens to the human body after the bird has flown to her final destination. Place a jar full of water in front of the sun, and then break it any way you want. The water finds its own level and meets water. The outer covering of the jar meets its source, earth, and the space of the jar meets space. The reflection of the sun meets the sun. All the components of either the jar or the body meet or merge back into their respective sources. Actually, no one dies. The sense organs go back to their cosmic source. The organs of hearing go to the subtle Akash, the organ of touch to Vayu, and the organ of vision to fire. The individual soul willfully assumes, because of its desires, body after body, until the attainment of liberation is accomplished. The highest, immutable, and imperishable sky is birthless, deathless, and therefore there is no destruction. When the clouds are removed, then the sun reveals itself. How about that, y'all? Let's go for a refresh. I've been frozen for a while.
Yeah, you're going to refresh? Okay.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. Preacher is refreshing. And here she comes back momentarily. She will be back in a moment.
Hi, y'all. I'm back.
There you are. You're back in all your glory.
For verse 8.
There you go.
As flowing rivers give up their names and forms and merge into the ocean, so does the realized soul disidentify itself from all names and forms and attain the highest and self-illumined Purusha. Disidentify. That's a nice word.
Yep.
This verse inspires the aspirant. May you flow like a river that dances and sings the songs of the eternal, while traveling along many, many bends in the riverbed until she finally meets her beloved ocean. May you learn to allow the flow of the life force without creating dams of stagnant water, which become a source of illness and disease. That is why true sannyasins, renunciates, move all the time, or wherever they sit, their journey is called a journey without movement. They move not, yet they go ahead. Such individual souls who have become one with Brahman do not suffer on account of the pangs of separation. Verse 9. One who knows Brahman verily becomes Brahman, and in his lineage no one remains ignorant of Brahman. He goes beyond all sorrow and vice and attains freedom.
Freedom.
From all the knots at the cave of the heart, and then becomes immortal. Free, says Roseanne again.
Yeah.
I know you're bringing that one back up, but it's just so cool the way you do
Well,
that.
it was right there.
This verse says that he who has realized Brahman and has become one with Brahman is verily Brahman. Anyone who comes into his presence becomes elevated by his subtle spiritual vibrations. No member of the family in which he dwells remains ignorant because he becomes the example.
Now, we individually may not be that elevated, but notice the fact that what we're doing seems to have sometimes or often an effect on those around us.
That's right.
And there's really something to that. And we all know that, don't we?
Yep. Let me tell you that the presence of a great sage can teach the aspirant without words. Advanced disciples are taught by their gurus from a long distance. It is also true that the best of teachings are imparted in silence through silence. I thought we needed a moment of silence after that.
There you go.
When the body is still and the mind is perfectly tranquil, in such silence the mind has no questions. And if there are no questions, then such a mind does not need answers. A long and close association with a truly spiritual leader is able to establish a relationship between the preceptor and pupil that is higher than any other relationship on earth. Just as a newborn baby's babbling is clearly understood by its mother, and the mother's language clearly understood by the infant, so the words spoken by the guru in the voice of silence are clearly understood by his close disciples, provided the guru remains a transmitter and the disciple a receiver. Another interesting question arises then. In which language can the mind continue its jabber? Because it has forgotten all its languages. The answer is that it is one with the bliss, exactly as a drop of water becomes one with the ocean. Verse 10, as it is said in the mantra, this knowledge of Brahman should be imparted only to those who are sincere, studious, inclined toward Brahman, self-disciplined, who are dedicated to one seer, and who have taken a vow of carrying fire on their heads according to the rules.
Preacher, I guess maybe this means that this does not include every person who sends you an email.
I was going to say, I don't think it's even possible to impart it to anybody that's not prepared.
No, but it's not the attempt. Don't even attempt.
How many people do we meet who are actually inclined toward Brahman?
So don't waste your time.
Very few. But there's a few out there. There's a few in here. We're all.
Of course.
So it's very, you can tell when somebody's not inclined toward Brahman pretty easily.
But this verse is a good point of awareness to be mindful of.
Yes.
Because many of us who genuinely care for other people, I have this own fault in my own personality. I'm too giving. I see that in another person, when for that person it's not actually there. And so this verse is a good reminder. Don, the counselor, is sitting over there right now, nodding, understanding wisely what this is saying. You can only do so much.
Right.
He's nodding again and his eyes are opening. Anyway.
I thought this line of the vow of carrying fire on their heads according to the rules was kind of interesting. My first impression of that was back to that verse about how obstacles are different.
Yeah.
Obstacles different. So, for me, I've taken a vow of carrying fire on my head. I've taken a vow of doing this no matter what. So when the obstacles come my way, I got to keep plunging through. And when I fall, I got to get back up. And that's carrying fire on my head.
Yeah, that's the deal.
Although it really would look funny if it actually was so. If we were all running around with this fire on top of our heads, it would be pretty funny.
That would be funny.
Let's make a headdress for the cult. We can have little flames coming
Little flames, little flame hats Rojo wants to design.
Or something, so
maybe somebody has one of these online apps that we can put our profile picture in and then flames out of our head.
And we open our mouth and flame comes shooting out.
And open our mouths and flames come shooting out.
That's how they work these days.
Oh, well.
We're out of rice.
Boy, it will look funny when we all get together and go to Starbucks with those flames on our heads.
Yeah, that's going to be something, isn't it? Anyway, carry on, preacher.
According to the sovereign science of the Rig Veda, a guideline has been set down for the preceptor, which pertains to imparting the knowledge of the Vedas and Upanishads. It is said that it is imparted only to those who have performed their duties and who are well versed in the scriptural knowledge and are fully devoted to Brahman, who have firm faith and who have offered all that they think is theirs in the Ekarshi fire. The word Ekarshi here has been used for the fire of knowledge, which completely burns the impurities and liberates one from ignorance. There is another system introduced and discussed in this verse. In previous verses, the paths of enlightenment through meditation and devotion have been discussed. The path of enlightenment through jhana has also been described, but the path of enlightenment through action has not yet been explained. This verse seems to be devoted to selfless action performed skillfully. The law of karma is inevitable, and without performing one's duties and actions, the heart, mind, intellect, emotions, thoughts, and all aspects of buddhi cannot be purified. Understanding this cultivates a proper atmosphere that enables a sadhaka to do sadhana with vigor and delight. A seeker of truth first has to have a profound knowledge of the Vedas. Patanjali, the codifier of yoga science, says that it is not the words that are eternal, but the knowledge contained therein that is eternal, impersonal, and imperishable. Therefore, these scriptures are superb containers of knowledge and furnish the essential means for gaining self-realization. In the primary state, an aspirant worships Brahman with full devotion and love, but it is Brahman with attributes because the mind is still being prepared to be tranquil.
And this is just the habit of our minds to see things in terms of something with form or having attributes. Thus, we create religious figures and bodies of worship. There's nothing wrong with that, but if we understand that it's in the nature of our mental process to do that, then it makes more sense. But what we're really trying to do is go beyond that and experience the formless consciousness. finally pure consciousness is attained.
It's said that in the physical form worship that there's something there for all of the senses, to engage all the senses.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, touch, sight, smell, sound, taste. So it's all there, and it seems to make sense as a preparation for the mind to be tranquil, because it just engages everything one-pointed toward this ideal.
Yeah, and we are addicted to our sensory experience, aren't we?
Yeah, and so once we've gone through that, then, you know, boy, it's kind of time to move on. So finally, pure consciousness is attained. A seeker of truth should have faith in his spiritual preceptor and in the sayings of the great books, as well as the sayings of the great sages. Svadhyaya is another important factor that acts like a fuel to make the fire blaze. Without faith, the mind refuses to meditate. Think on that one. Faith should be cherished. There is a mention of the sacrifice called Ekarshi. Symbolically, one is required to carry a fire on one's head. This is described in the Atharva Veda. By this means, an aspirant acquires good concentration of mind and purity of heart. Such concentration is like that of a woman, excuse me, who daily fetches water from the plazas that are outside villages in India. With the water vessel on her head, she dances and sings and discusses all the things she wants with her friends, but her attention remains on her vessel. So should be the case with the people of the world, who are mostly karma yogis. They should learn to do their duties, but their attention should be constantly on the center of consciousness within themselves. This awareness should be cultivated.
This awareness really, really should be cultivated. And that thing of the women with a pot on their head is actually a beautiful symbol, isn't it? The ability to remain constantly aware of that thing. And if that woman can do that, if those of you have been around India, it really, really is true. And it's quite amazing to watch them do this. They just totally walk around and the thing is completely stable on their head. Very one-pointed. And you see a couple women walking along and their mouths are just jabbering constantly, talking. But the pots don't move. And it's a way of us remembering this is what we're trying to do as yogis, to maintain this constant awareness. And it can be done. It can be done. And it does not mean you have to first be an enlightened sage to start practicing that. You have to put the pot of water on your head. And it doesn't mean necessarily on your head. It can be awareness in your heart. Doesn't matter where it is, but it is constant awareness. Constantly aware of the center of consciousness within. That's my 2 cents worth. Thank you for letting me interrupt, preacher.
Oh, I enjoy your interruptions immensely. But I was thinking about that with carrying the pot on the head, and I remember maybe all of us might have done this when we were kids, tried to walk around with a book on our head.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really hard to do, but when you do it, there's a kind of sense of accomplishment when you can kind of move around and keep that balance. But it really does require a lot of one-pointed attention.
Indeed, it does.
And I couldn't help but identify with that and think about.
Note here that while we call it one-pointed attention, when we are remembering the center of consciousness, it's an awareness of feeling that is internal. It does not mean that the attention is on a pinpoint. It doesn't mean that kind of one-pointedness.
Right.
It means constant awareness of that consciousness itself. It may not literally be a pinpoint. It's not I'll do this like this. It's not a pinpoint like this, which is the tip of a pen.
Right.
It's this kind of one-pointedness.
It reminds me when you think about the analogy of a book. When I first put a book on my head and try to balance, I can't do anything else but work with that book. And
Yeah.
once I got it for a little while, then I can actually walk across the room with the book on my head.
Yeah.
And so I'm focused on the book, but I'm also walking.
Yes. Good example. Very good example, Leela.
So, yeah, that's how we have to do it. I think I got it.
There you go. Good. Thank you.
A man of the world cannot liberate himself from the bondage of karma without performing completely selfless actions. So similarly, does a renunciate purify his heart and mind through tapas, austerity, svadhyaya, study of scriptures, and ishvara pranidhana, surrender of himself to the Lord alone.
And that, if you may remember, everybody, is a part of the Yoga Sutras. It's the first sutra, I believe, of chapter 2. Tapas Svadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana Kriya Yoga.
And if we remember our readings from the Bhagavad Gita, Lord refers to pure consciousness.
Yeah.
There is always a difference between these disciplines and actions performed in the external world. These disciplines do not have a binding effect, but instead furnish the means and inspire the aspirant on the path of sadhana. The seer Angiras explained truth in ancient times. A person who has fulfilled his vows may study this Upanishad. Homage to the great sages. Homage to the great sages. The seer Angiras taught this truth in ancient times and declares that this scripture should not be read by those who have not taken vows. That is, by those who do not have the determination to practice a spiritual discipline as given by the teacher. It is clear that the knowledge of Brahman should not be given to an impure person. The study of the sovereign science needs a well-equipped lab. If the lab is not fully equipped, meaning if the functioning of body, breath, and mind are not coordinated in the lab of the human body, then a person will be making a futile effort and wasting his time and energy. The great sages are realized ones and have become the channels through whom pure knowledge flows. Such sages transmit this knowledge to those aspirants who are fully determined to purify themselves, those who are in the process of purifying themselves, or those fortunate few who have already purified their internal states. The word homage or salutation is repeated twice to express the feeling of gratitude and reverence toward the sages who teach the sovereign science of Brahman. Here ends the second canto of chapter 3.
There you go. Anjan posted a comment, is the center of consciousness in the head or the heart? How to answer that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes and no is probably the best answer.
Yeah, really. I get that.
The center of consciousness is prior to the manifestation of what you know as head and heart.
Great way to explain it, too.
I know that may not be a very satisfying way of saying it. Raz says it's not in the body. That's a way of saying it too. But that said, what we all have to do is find that internally. And if your predisposition is to start by going into your heart, then look there. If your predisposition is to look within the space between the eyebrows in that ajna chakra, then seek there. And you will find that prior to the heart in that kind of way, and prior to the head in that kind of way, is the center. Both doors lead to the ballroom. I say that in the context of sometimes I think of the lobby of when I've been in a really, really fancy, classy hotel, you know, that has a huge, just well-decorated lobby, and over there is a ballroom. And you look over there, there's a wall, and there's doors to the left that go into the ballroom, and there's doors to the right that go into the ballroom. Well, you can walk in this door or you can walk in this door, but they both go to the ballroom. And the ballroom is the center of consciousness. So we can follow our own inclination of whether we think it's head or we think it's heart, and we can hold it in that kind of way. But the key is remembering the center and not accidentally, I'm not saying you're trying to do this, but don't accidentally fall into the trap of debating whether it's about head and heart. This is a very common debate that intellectual people have about whether we find God or truth or reality by going in the heart, or do you find it here? And it can be just debated intellectually like crazy. And people can quote different traditions and different teachers and different sentences and verses that says, go in here. And somebody else says, no, go in here. And better to not get caught in that kind of debate. Not saying that you were doing that, just trying to give a sort of thorough response to what the question you've raised. It's a wonderful question. But as Roz points out, we end up figuring out that it's not in the body. What we commonly think of as head and heart and chakras, for that matter, are all gross manifestations of that center. Saying the same thing another way is all of this is a manifestation of this. This is the center. Now, when we put this on a piece of paper and I post it up here on the wall, it looks like we're saying it like physically. Okay, here's the body. Well, where in the body? Here's the body. Where in the body do I find this? And it's just a symbol. It's just ink on a piece of white paper that's nailed up on the wall. It's a symbol. That's all it is. And so it's inside. You know, wherever you, it's like digging a well for water in a place where there's a huge water aquifer under the land. Dig a well anywhere and you find water. The area of where we live in Florida is very near the ocean. And it doesn't matter where your house is along the ocean there. If you dig a well down in your yard of your house, you're going to find water. So where is the water in relation to your house? Down. It's a very simple answer, down. It's not that this house has water and this one doesn't. Not in every place does that metaphor work, but it's a principle. So there we go. Okay, preacher, you froze again, but your audio is here.
Oh, good. I'm still here.
And so I think, do you want to see the cliffhanger?
Oh, I think we should see the cliffhanger, yeah.
All right, let me cue up whoops, wait a minute. No, the cliffhanger is the glossary of the book. So it's up to you. Do you want to go through all these words in the glossary later or start a new thing? Probably want to start a new thing.
I think we should start a new thing.
Okay, you and I'll chat during the next coming days about you're the preacher and it's Sunday, and we'll chat a little bit about what to do next on Sunday with Preacher Leela.
Oh, good.
If that's okay.
That's good.
All righty. And you are frozen. Do you
Shall
want to
unfreeze?
Yeah, unfreeze so you can wave goodbye?
All right, here I go. I'm going to reboot this browser. Here we go.
Preacher will be back in a moment. For now, you get me. Whoops, here she comes. That was pretty quick. There she is. Whoops, wait a minute. I have to turn me off. There we are. And there is the whole smiling butterfly. Is that a butterfly or a hummingbird?
Well, maybe it's a butterfly now because the hummingbirds all flew south.
Yeah, the hummingbird is all flittered out.
Yeah.
I don't know what flittered is anyway.
But it's been a wonderful day.
It's a very nice day. Thank you, Leela. Fun as always. And thank you all for visiting and hanging out and playing and for adding comments in there. And it brings life to what we're doing. Appreciate that. So all to be continued over upcoming days, and we'll come up with something rich and exciting. I'm sure Leela will choose something that she loves to do, and we will go through that next Sunday. Other things are going on at different times and days during the week. And as all of you now know, one nice thing about this modality of communicating is for those who have missed this right now, they get to look at it later if so inclined.
And y'all, it's always an honor and a pleasure to do this on Sundays. Thanks for
it is fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is afternoon church for yogis on Sunday. We had church for yogi this morning. You weren't with us this morning, Leela, were you?
No, I had to miss this morning. I was preoccupied.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens. So it's there if you're curious to see what we were doing.
It's nice that I can go back and look at it later now.
Yeah. And it's fun. I enjoy all of these. I enjoy seeing what we've done and then going a day later and look like the number of views has gone up. It's not about numbers. I'm not saying that to make it about numbers, but I know that some of you have been able to watch a piece of the previous conversation that you missed when it was live.
Right.
And I enjoy that. I know that it tells me, and some of you tell me, that you're enjoying this modality of communicating with one another. So, and if you want, jump into the table talk and bring up any subject you want. Anybody who posts something, a question or something in there, something you've been pondering, I'll turn on the video and give you a response. And so we're engaging there. And so use that modality, please. All this is about doing sadhana together. Nobody can do it for us. We all have to sit on our own butt and do our own introspection, obviously. But I love Swami Rama's phrase of saying it, well, that we can help one another learn how to unlearn. We have learned our way into thinking that this composite is me. And we're trying to remember and find that center. What Anjan was saying, where do I find this center? Where is this silly center that everybody keeps talking about? It's got to be here somewhere. Where did I leave it? Oh, I left it under this little tube of stuff here. I know where it is. It's under my mouse pad. Whoops.
No, it's in the silence at the end of the Om.
Oh, that you are right, Leela. I think you are right. Good reminder. It is in the silence that is after the Om, the Ah, the U, the and there it is. Vaishvanar, Tejasa, Prajna, Turiya. Or Tripur, the one who's in the three cities, 1, 2, 3. It's in the silence after the Om. Thank you, preacher. Very good reminder. Okay, bye-bye all. Have a wonderful next meditation. I'm not going to remind you again where to find it because Leela already told you. Besides, she's the preacher, so she gets the last word. Any other last word, preacher? Or
there is no other last word other than Om.
Om, there you go. Okay.
5 o'clock.
All righty, bye-bye.